Magandang araw mga ka-psych and welcome to our Psychologist and Psychometricians Review for Board Exam. Oh, ready ka na ba? Let's start! Theories of Personality Review Questions. Number 1. Klein extended Freud's psychoanalysis with her emphasis on A. Adolescence, B. Young adult, C. Old age, or D. Very early infancy. Number 2. Klein believed that children introject their mother into their psychic structure. This means that A. They believe that they are inside their mother. B. They believe that their mother is inside their own body. Letter C. They reject their mother's authority. Or letter D. They adopt their mother's standards of morality. Number 3. In contrast to Freud, Klein believed that the superego, A. emerged much later. B. Grew out of Oedipus complex. C. Preceded the development of the ego. And D. Is much more harsh and cruel. Number 4. Mahler believed that when infants realize that they cannot satisfy their own basic needs, they A. Reject those needs and introject a new set of learned needs. B. Become autistic. C. They seek a symbiotic relationship with their mother. Or D. They merge their ego with their superego. Number 5. Mahler held that children begin to develop feelings of personal identity during this development stage. Is it A. Normal symbiosis, B. Separation individuation, C. Normal autism, or D. Pre-adolescence. Number 6. Kohut's narcissistic need included the need A. To exhibit the grandiose self-idealized parent image, B. To be the first in the eyes of one's parents, C. To acquire a sense of self-identity, or D. For power and authority. Number 7. To Dollard and Miller, the essence of learning is A. Punishment received for correct response, B. Strengthening the cue-response connection, C. Weakening of cue-response connection, D. Any event which increases the strength of the drive. Number 8. Difference among cultures and individuals can be accounted for by blank drive. Is it A. Innate, B. Primary, C. Learned, or D. None of this? Number 9. Dollard and Miller believe our most beneficial cultural heritage is A. Marriage, B. Courtship, C. Childcare, or D. Language. Number 10. According to Dollard and Miller, abnormality is learned through A. Conflict, B. Repression, C. Reinforcement, or D. All of the choices. Number 11. Which of the following description would best describe B.F. Skinner? Is it A. Determinist, B. Environmentalist, C. Cognitive psychologist, or D. Radical behaviorist? Number 12. To Skinner, the effects of punishment are A. The same effect with rewards, B. The exact opposite of those of reward, C. More predictable than reward, or D. Less predictable than reward. Number 13. The following are effects of punishment except A. Suppression of related behavior, B. Suppression of behavior punished, C. Conditioning of negative behavior, or D, shaping of the targeted behavior. Number 14. Which of the following is most clearly an example of a conditioned reinforcement? Is it A, physical comfort, B, food, C, money, D, sleep? Number 15. Which is considered by Skinner as the most inefficient schedule of reinforcement? Is it A, continuous, B, intermittent, C, ratio, or D, interval? Number 16. Which schedule of reinforcement illustrates playing slot machine? Is it A, fixed ratio, B, variable ratio, C, fixed interval, D, variable interval? 17. Bi-monthly salaries are reinforcement working on which schedule of reinforcement? Is it A, fixed ratio, B, variable ratio, C, fixed interval, or D, variable interval? Number 18. Which is the first requirement for self-regulation? Is it A, self-system, B, self-observation, C, free will, or D, modeling? Number 19. When a person compares his test scores to others to determine his performance, that person is using which judgment process? Is it A, personal standard, B, positive reinforcement, C, performance attribution, or D, values classification? 20. When would self-efficacy most likely to increase? Is it A, after failing at a task, B, when effort falls short success, B, after successfully performing a difficult task, or D, when not determined to succeed? And now, we go to answers and explanation. Number 1. Klein extended Freud's psychoanalysis with her emphasis on. The answer is letter D, very early infancy. The object relations theory of Melanie Klein was built on careful observation of young children. In contrast to Freud, who emphasized the first 4 to 6 years of life, Klein stressed the importance of the first 4 to 6 months after birth. She insisted that the infant's drive, like hunger, sex, and so forth, are directed to an object, a breast, a penis, a vagina, and so on. And according to Klein, the child's relation to the breast is fundamental and serves as a prototype for later relations to whole objects such as mother and father. Number 2. Klein believed that children introject their mother into their psychic structure. This means that they, letter B, believe that their mother is inside their own body. Introjected objects are not accurate representation of the real objects, but are colored by children's fantasy. For example, infants will fantasize that their mother is constantly present. That is, they feel that their mother is always inside their body. The real mother, of course, is not perpetually present, but infants nevertheless devour her in fantasy so that she becomes a constant internal object. Number 3. In contrast to Freud, Klein believed that the superego, the answer is D, is much more harsh and cruel. Klein's picture of the superego differs from Freud's in at least 3 important respects. First, it emerges much earlier in life. Second, it is not an outgrowth of an Oedipus complex. And third, it is much harsher and crueler. Next, number 4. Mahler believed that when infants realize that they cannot satisfy their own basic needs, the answer is letter C, seek a symbiotic relationship with their mother. As infants gradually realize that they cannot satisfy their own needs, they begin to recognize their primary caregiver and to seek a symbiotic relationship with her, a condition that leads to normal symbiosis, the second developmental stage of Maller's theory. Number 5, Maller held that children begin to develop feelings of personal identity during this developmental stage. The answer is letter B, separation, individuation. The third major developmental stage, separation, individuation, spans the period from about 4th or 5th month of age until about the 30th or 36th month. During this time, children become psychologically separated from their mother, achieve a sense of individuation, and begin to develop feelings of personal identity. Number 6, Kohut's narcissistic needs include the need, letter A, to exhibit the grandiose self-idealized parent image. Kohut's believed that infants are naturally narcissistic. They are self-centered, looking out exclusively for their own welfare, and wishing to be admired for those for who they are and for what they do. The early selves become crystallized around two basic narcissistic needs: the need to exhibit the grandiose self and the need to acquire an idealized image of one or both parents. Number 7, Dollard and Miller. The essence of learning is, letter B, strengthening the cue-response connection. Number 8, difference among culture and individuals can be accounted for by, the answer is letter C, learned drive. Dollard and Miller believe our most beneficial cultural heritage is, the answer is letter D, language. Number 10, according to Dollard and Miller, abnormality is learned through, the answer is all of the choices. It is learned through conflict, repression, and reinforcement. Number 11, which of the following description would least describe B.F. Skinner? Is it A, determinist? No. The answer is letter C, cognitive psychologist. Skinner can rightfully be regarded as a determinist and environmentalist. Skinner's strict adherence to observable behavior earned his approach the label radical behaviorism, a doctrine that avoids all hypothetical constructs such as ego, traits, drives, needs, hunger, and so forth. Number 12. To Skinner, the effects of punishment are, the answer, letter D, less predictable than rewards. Skinner agreed with Thorndike that the effects of punishment are less predictable than those of reward. 13. The following are effects of punishment except letter D, shaping of the targeted behavior. Number 14. Which of the following is most clearly an example of a conditioned reinforcement? The answer is letter C, money. 15. Which is considered by Skinner as the most inefficient schedule of reinforcement? The answer is letter A, continuous. With continuous schedule, the organism is reinforced for every response. This type of schedule increases the frequency of a response but is an inefficient use of the reinforcer. Skinner preferred intermittent schedule, not only because they make more efficient use of the reinforcer, but because they produce responses that are more resistant to extinction. Number 16. Which schedule of reinforcement illustrates playing a slot machine? The answer, letter B, variable ratio. 17. By monthly salaries are reinforcement working in schedule of reinforcement? The answer is letter C, fixed interval. 18. Which is the first requirement of self-regulation? The answer? Letter B, self-observation. External factors interact with internal or personal factors in self-regulation. Bandura recognized 3 internal requirements in the ongoing exercise of self-influence. Number 1, self-observation. Number 2, judgmental processes. And number 3, self-reaction. Next, number 19. When a person compares his test score to others to determine his performance, that person is using which judgment process? The answer? Performance attribution. Self-regulation also depends on how we judge the cause of our behavior. That is performance attribution. If we believe that our success is due to our own efforts, we will take pride in our accomplishment and tend to work harder to attain our goals. However, if we attribute our performance to external factors, we will not derive as much self-satisfaction and will probably not put forth strenuous effort to attain our goals. And last, number 20, when would self-efficacy most likely to increase? The answer is letter C, after successfully performing a difficult task. Successful performance raises self-efficacy in proportion to the difficulty of the task. Highly skilled tennis players gain little self-efficacy by defeating clearly inferior opponents, but they gain much by performing well against superior opponents. And that's the end of our drill for today. I hope marami kang natutunan. Mag-share and mag-subscribe na rin at click mo na rin yung notification bell para every time na may i-upload tayong bagong video, mabibigyan ka ng notification. So keep safe and have a nice day.